Okay, welcome to the September edition of the Astronomical, the Astro Imaging Special Interest Group from the TAAA. As we usually do for the beginning of our meetings, are there any new members who haven't introduced themselves? I think most of the names I see up there look familiar. Anybody new? First time, first meeting? Oh, Mr. Smith.
I don't know why my Windows says 15202, but I'm Douglas Smith. I'm the Astronomical Lead Coordinator for TAAA.
And we'll be getting to you shortly here.
Yeah.
Okay, and we also at the beginning take a few minutes if anyone has any beginner type questions that they'd like to throw out with the idea that somebody in our group might be able to help them. This is your chance to do that. So, anybody have any beginner questions?
I don't have any questions. I just want to offer my apologies for the clouds and the bad weather because, as you can see, I just set up my rig today, got it all hooked up. It's an SQA 55 AM5N mount. It's going to be my wide field rig. And of course, once you get new equipment, the clouds roll in. So I just wanted to apologize.
And what camera is that?
This is my 2600 MC Pro that I've been using on my C8.
You didn't buy a new camera?
No, I have to do this in phases to get financial approvals. That'll be next year.
All right, so we can blame you for the clouds coming this next week.
Yes.
Anybody have a question? All right. Well, since there aren't any questions, we're just going to move right on to our main topic. And the main
I think
topic,
Mr. Jim had a question, but he's on mute.
who's this?
You're on mute. Now you're unmuted.
Is there someone with a question?
It looked like whoever Mr. Jim is did, but then I think he's having trouble with Zoom. He couldn't get his audio to work.
Okay. Well, we always have time at the end if
Sure.
for further discussion. So you may have already met Doug Smith, but let me introduce him. Doug is the coordinator for the Astronomical League for the Tucson Amateur Astronomy Association. I asked him to spend a few minutes this evening describing the AL programs and in particular some of the imaging options, and then I'll share a few of my thoughts at the end. So Doug, if you'd like, you can feel free to share your screen and take it away.
Okay. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the Astronomical League website. And if you go in here and see if I can do this. If you go down here where it says observe, you can see all the observing programs listed alphabetically. And it's a big list, as you can see. Last time I counted, there were over 120 of these programs. Now, several years ago, we were directed, all of the program coordinators, not only am I the Astronomical League Coordinator for TAAA, I am also the program coordinator for 3 of these observing programs. We were directed several years ago by, that is, all the program coordinators for all the different programs. We were directed to, if we didn't already have an imaging option available for our program, to put one together. As a result of that, basically every program you see here, there might be a few exceptions, but basically every program here has imaging options where you can receive the award and the certificate and the pin and do it by imaging instead of visual observing. And there's everything you can think of. We have arc galaxies, globular clusters, program, bright nebula. I mean, the list is big. And you can just click on any one of these programs. I'll just pick one here. Comet. And there's this box here. All the programs have this requirement box on them that gives you basic requirements. And there it is, visual and imaging. So there's an imaging option for this program. And somewhere down here, it'll tell you what you need to do in terms of imaging in order to achieve the award. Now, one of the other things you'll see here is remote telescopes allowed. You'll see that for all the different programs too. About half of the programs allow you to use a remote telescope, but about half of them don't. And there's ongoing discussions about that with the program coordinators. And the Astronomical League has a specific definition of what they consider a remote telescope. And you can look that up on the website. You can find that definition by just searching for a remote telescope up in the search bar. But I would say that if you guys want to earn these awards, more power to you, because there's like 100 of them that are imaging, and it covers everything you can think of just about. So, yeah, imaging is a good option. There's also, even in the visual side, you can do, when you earn 5 awards, you get a special award. When you get to 10 awards, you get your Master Observer certificate and so on. Well, there's also a Master Observer progression just for imaging. See, there's for your eyes only, binocular, and you can do Master Observing right here. You can go down and do it imaging wise, and you can get a Master Imager award if you want to do that. So you have all these options available to you for imaging. And Greg has gotten a couple of these awards already. Oh. Any questions about this?
Hey, Doug, would you mention the special observing awards like this one for the Titan shadow on Saturn?
Yeah, you have to search for that. There are what's called special observing challenges. How do I get to those? They're listed somewhere else. I'm not quite sure how to find them now. They're not listed here. These are all the standard awards. How do I get to the special observing challenges? Oh dear. I think I might have forgotten how to find them. Let's see if I can find that.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Cool. Hey, Doug, how do you join the Astronomical League?
Oh, that's easy. There's a form on the TAAA website where you can join. Let me go ahead and pull that up.
Life out of it. The theory is.
So if you just go over here to TAAA resources and pull that down, here's the Astronomical League, and here you go, a couple of buttons here. This will take you to a form in the member planet area where you can join. It's $9 a year to join the Astronomical League. If you don't want to join through this online member planet thing, if worse comes to worse, you can just send a $9 check to the TAAA address, the PO box address. You put a note on the check saying it's for your Astronomical League membership. And either way, I'll find out about it. I'll get an email from the treasurer telling me that you joined. Um, and you don't have to be a member of the Astronomical League when you start any of the Astronomical League programs. You just have to be a member when you submit for your award. They'll check the database to make sure they're in your database. So that's real easy. And
So if we do outreach for Tree AAA, which some of us do,
yeah,
it says there's an outreach program, outreach
yeah,
recognition.
yeah,
Um,
there is.
how do we submit? What do we do? Do we just say, hey, we did this star party for TAAA on this date, and
Well,
here's how many people were there? What are the requirements to report that stuff?
you don't need to do anything except sign up. When Jim Knoll or Bernie Sanders sends out, his list of outreach events for the month, and you say, okay, I'm going to volunteer for that one. He keeps track of who shows up for which events, and he keeps track of how many hours they're at the event, and he gets a count of how many people show up for those events. And he sends all that information to me at the end of each year, and I compile it in my big database, and I send in a submission to the Astronomical League for the awards. If you remember, I just gave out like 65 of them a couple months ago. Um, and I have the database of all of the people that are working through his or Jim's programs. So that's how you get the outreach, and you get a pin and a certificate from Astronomical League. It's down here somewhere.
Well,
Outreach.
I was that explains why I didn't get a certificate for the hours I did last year because I'm not a member of the Astronomical League, so it's not anybody's problem but
No, no,
mine.
no, no.
So
That's not it. If you didn't get a certificate, then it means you must not have put in enough hours to get an award. Because this year we did something special. Everybody who was supposed to get an award or who qualified for an award, we paid for their Astronomical League membership out of club money.
I gotcha, gotcha.
So um, the only reason I can think of why you didn't get an award is you didn't have enough hours or you didn't have enough events to
Yeah,
qualify for one of the
I thought
awards.
I had 52 hours. I'm not sure that's enough, but
How
we'll
many
work
events?
harder this year.
It would, yeah. We I'm sure I've got you in the database. If you
So
think you're not in the database, send me your name and information. I'll check.
yeah, before I spend $9, I'd like to know if you'd already paid for me. So that's something I'll look into. I'll
Okay.
send you an email. Thanks.
Hey, Doug, if you submit an image for a certain type of object or category, what determines if you get an award or not? Is it how many images you posted, or do they look
There's
at
a
the images
specific
and judge them?
each of the programs has a specific set of requirements. You'd have to read the requirements for that specific program. Usually it's something like, for example, I'll just like the comet one that I showed you. They probably require, it'll say what it requires. Like I said, you just need to read the requirements. Um, So like here, it's talking about number of observations, 12 or 30. But if you go down in here where it talks about requirements and rules, it probably has a different number for imaging where it says you have to submit a certain number of images of a certain number of different comets. And you have to have all the information about how you did the imaging and so forth. All that you need to read the requirements on the page, to figure out what you need to do to qualify for the award. Okay. And then when you think you've got all your requirements put together, you send it to the program coordinator, which is this listed at the top of the program page. In this case, it's Scott Kranz. You would send it to him. All the information, your images and everything would go to him, and he would review it, and he'll issue the award if he thinks you met the requirements. Other questions? I strongly encourage everybody to work on these programs. I think it gives you, what I tell people, I do a workshop on the Astronomical League, and what I always tell people who are new to it, I say, you go out and you buy a telescope, and when you first buy your telescope, you're out there looking at Saturn and the moon and some interesting nebulas and some galaxies. But after a year or two, you're starting to look at the same things over and over again. And it's like, then you say to yourself, well, what do I do with it now? And it's like, well, these programs give you a list of objects to hunt down and find and look at. And I think that's true for imaging just as much as it is for visual observing, It's nice to have a list and a goal. This gives you a goal to shoot for in terms of something to do. And like I said, most programs now have imaging options. So that wasn't true 5 years ago, but it is now.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. I'll email you and see if
Okay.
there was any, and if not, I'll just pay the $9. It's no big deal.
Well, I'll check. I probably, even if you're not in the Astronomical League, I probably have a record of your outreach stuff. I'll check and see, and I'll look at it and see why you didn't get it.
That's going to do it for Bondo's for
I'll throw in a comment here.
Yeah.
I joined the Astronomical League a couple months ago, and not only do they give out these award things, they have a lot of information on their site of upcoming events. They have star maps you can download.
That's true too.
It's a wonderful organization, and I think that you get more than your money's worth out of that $9.
Yeah, I mean, $9 a year. Yeah, I strongly encourage you guys to explore the website. There's a lot of good stuff on there. They have a store. They sell books. They sell the different guides for the different programs. Most of the observing programs, they give you the list of objects to look at right there on the web page, but some of them you actually have to buy the stupid book. But we have all the books in our library, so you don't have to buy them. You can check them out from our library, any of the books that you might need. I have them all in the library. Every time they publish a book and put it in their store, I buy a copy for the TAAA library, so we don't have to buy them. But yeah, they have a lot of useful information. They have lots of tips on how to do different things, and kind of cool. It's a good website. Lots of information. So check it out. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, Greg, if there's nothing else for me, I'm going to go ahead and log off.
Okay, I'll follow up here.
Okay.
And you might want to hang on just in case I make a mistake. And
all right, I can hang on for a while. Sure.
Okay.
Hey, Doug, before you go,
yeah,
is your email address on the TAAA website?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
in
I'll
several
find it.
places.
Don't worry about it.
It's dsmith217@cox.net.
217. Okay.
It is all over the website, all over the TAAA website.
Excellent. Thank you, Doug.
Okay, I'll stop sharing now.
Okay.
There you go.
Let me try to get this in full screen. There we go. Can everybody see that? Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time seeing it because I had my eyes dilated earlier today, so I'm actually seeing two of everything. Um, I'm just going to follow up on what Doug already introduced and give you a little bit of my experience with doing the challenges from the AL. And I think, as Doug already mentioned, even if you're not interested in pursuing the challenge all the way to the end to get a certificate and a pin, the challenges or the observing programs themselves have very, very interesting lists of objects in different categories. And so it would behoove you to, as he said, log on to the website and just kind of browse through some of those because if you've imaged M31 a dozen times and M42 a couple dozen times, and you're looking for something different to image, there's all kind of really cool suggestions depending on which one of the programs you look at. So I'm just going to share some of the few that I've done. I've completed 8 of these so far. I guess 9 if you include the shadow of Titan on Saturn. That was one of the special programs that they produce when some special event that happens only infrequently pops up. And as I think somebody mentioned, in addition to doing the observation or imaging that particular event, you had to do an outreach. So I spoke to one of my other clubs about why the image of Titan on Saturn was only visible every 15 years or so. So anyway, I'm just going to kind of briefly go through these 3 programs that you see listed there. Doug has already touched on one of them, the Comet Observing Program. And these are kind of in the order of difficulty, and I'll kind of explain that as we go along. But the first one I did was comet observing, and that's because I started imaging comets about 20 years ago. And after a few years, I noticed that I had a lot of comet images, and I was looking through the AL website, and I saw the requirements for the comet certificate. You only needed 12 to get the silver certificate and 30 to get the gold certificate. And when I counted up the ones I had, I had already had enough to qualify for the gold. So what I had to do then was to put together the other required information that we've already kind of touched on. And usually that involves the date and time of the observation, the location from which you observed or imaged the object, and then various other things depending on what it is that you're imaging. For the comets, you just had to provide the image of the comet and tell what the name of it was. So I listed that one as a pretty easy one. And for people who have automated telescopes like the Sea-Star, you could probably knock out the comet imaging program in a very short period of time because those little telescopes do a great job of going right to a particular object and getting an image. And if the comet is fairly bright at all, you could complete that with very little trouble. So the other 2 programs that I have listed here are the Messier Imaging Observing Program, which, as you can probably guess, is the Messier list, and then the Globular Cluster Observing Program, which is a little bit more of a challenge. So as I already said, the Comet imaging program was pretty easy. You need 12 for the silver certificate or 30 for the gold. And this is what the certificate looks like. It's an 8x10 certificate that you can frame and hang on your wall to impress your family and friends. And for most of these, you also get a pin, and the pin is the little thing you see in the middle of the certificate down there. So you can wear that on your lapel when you visit your relatives. The Messier Imaging Observing Program, as you might expect, requires that you image all 110 of the Messier targets. So they give you the list, but obviously if you have a Messier list, you know what those are. And in this particular instance, remote telescopes are not allowed. And I'm not sure why that decision was made, but I think it has a lot to do with the fact that historically people have done the Messier marathon in the spring and try to complete the entire list in one night. You don't have to do that for the imaging program. You can spread it out as long as it takes. But for some reason, this is one of the few in which the remote telescope is not allowed. Doug, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, the reason they don't want remote telescopes used for this is a program, this is the oldest program, the Messier program. It's the oldest program that the Astronomical League has, and they want you to learn something about the sky while you're doing it. They want you to learn about your own equipment while you're doing it, because most people start with this program as the first program they tackle, and they want you to learn something while you're doing it. So they specifically took the remote telescope out.
Okay, got it. And again, this is not an easy one because obviously you have to point your imaging system at all 110 objects. Some of the objects can be imaged with a wide field telescope where you may get 2 or 3 of them in the same field. But again, it's not an easy one to complete. And it took me quite a while to complete it. And I was surprised when I got my certificate, it said that I was number 8. So after they began allowing imaging for the Messier program, not a lot of people have done this challenge. I was really surprised that there were only 8 people or 7 people in front of me. But again, you get a certificate and a pin. The way I record my image sessions, I have a website, and every time I put an image on the website, I list the object, the date that it was taken, the exposure, the camera, telescope, filters, and those are all the things that most of the imaging options require. For imaging, they usually require that you have the telescope, the camera, filters, and then some description of the object itself. And so I found it very useful to set up a little table on my web pages, and I use the same format for all of them. But it again allows me to just use the images that I have on the website as the content for what I send in to the program director or whoever is the responsible person for awarding the certificate. And that makes it fairly easy to complete. And the way that I submit the image data is I usually just use a simple spreadsheet. You can see here, this is the spreadsheet that I used for the Messier observation program. And again, by listing on the left-hand column there the number of the Messier object, and then simply putting a link to where that particular image exists on my web page. The person who evaluates your data submission can click on any of those, takes them right to that page like I just showed you before, where it has the image along with the necessary information. Again, for most of these, you have to list the location from which you took the image. And in my case, all these images were taken from 3 different locations: my previous home in St. Louis, or my remote observatory in New Mexico, or here in my backyard, Nora Valley. So even if you don't have a web page, you can list whatever is required by the program on some sort of a form like this, whether it's a spreadsheet or a simple table that you put together in Microsoft Word or some other word processing program. Makes it fairly easy to allow the person who's looking at your submission to go through and make sure that you've met all the requirements. The last program that I've listed of the ones that I consider my favorites is the Globular Cluster Observing Program. And this one is a little different in that the AL gives you a list of globular clusters, and you have to observe or image 50 of them. And so the list is rather lengthy. The list of the required objects, when you don't get to pick the objects like the COMET program, where the AL has certain objects that they want you to image, like the globular cluster program, they give you a long list, and usually somewhere at the bottom of the AL web page, there'll be a link to a PDF file or some other online database file where you can go and print out the list of objects so you can select which ones you think you can observe. And as Doug pointed out, in some instances, they actually sell you a book that has all the objects in it. The books tend to have a lot of information about the objects, which you'd otherwise have to go look up. So again, this particular one, I think there's several hundred globular clusters listed. The first 50 or so are all in the Andromeda galaxy. So not only do you try to image globular clusters that we would consider associated with the Milky Way galaxy, but there are a couple of requirements that you have to image globular clusters that are extragalactic, and they give you a whole list of those for the Andromeda galaxy, and I think M33 as well as a couple of others. So in addition to the regular list, there are a couple of options, and they do require that you do submit at least some of those extra galactic globulars to go along with it. And that seemed to be quite a challenge. So I had to go back and look at my images of M31 that I took many years ago and blow them up and try to find the required numbers of those globular clusters. So again, this is a little bit more difficult than some of the simpler programs, but it is a challenge, and it does give you a wide range of targets to look for. And as I said earlier, if you're looking for some unusual targets, then one of the programs like the Globular Cluster Program might be one of the places you start looking. So I'll just end with showing you this is a blow up of part of the M31 image, and I was able to identify a couple of the globular clusters. I think they required 3, and these were the 3 that I submitted with my data. So any questions about any of the stuff that I've gone over?
Greg, how did you figure out that those were globular clusters and not foreground stars?
Well, I had to look them up online.
Oh.
I had to find somebody who had already mapped them out and then go to my image and try to find the appropriate globulars. I suspect that you could go to some program like PixInsight that annotates images for you and have it annotate the image with, if you have the globular cluster catalog loaded. And I think there is a version of that floating around someplace. So you could do it automatically, but I was more challenged. I looked it up online and then tried to identify the same targets in my image.
Sounds more fun. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the other programs that Doug kind of mentioned too. One of the interesting ones is called 2 in the View, and it's a challenge that where it finds where there are 2 either similar or dissimilar objects, but they're typically in the same field of view. So it might be a galaxy and a globular cluster that would be in the same field of view for a typical eyepiece or a typical camera field of view. And that was a pretty interesting one to do as well, because there's a whole, I think there's 100 or 75 or 100 different targets there that you have to go through, in which you get to find stuff that is kind of out of the ordinary, where there are two interesting targets that you can get at the same time. So again, I would recommend, as Doug said, go through that list of observing programs on the AL website and see if any of them pique your interest. Any other questions? No questions. Okay. Well, we have plenty of time left. If anybody has any other topics they would like to bring up for general discussion, or images that you'd like to share, we have a few minutes to do so.
Can you guys hear me still?
Yes?
All right. Sorry that I couldn't talk earlier. I did have a newbie question for you in the beginning, but I had the wrong microphone selected, so I apologize for the confusion. I'm the new proud owner of a Hyperstar from my Celestron C11, and it's a version 3 Hyperstar. Of course, I never buy the new stuff. I always get stuff that I can afford. But I'm just curious, for folks that have used Hyperstar before, and if I've asked this before, I apologize. Do you have a tool that you use to figure out exposure time? I'll be using Neon. I just need to figure out with my ZWO 533 MC what to set the exposure time to take. Say I want to do the Messier catalog like you did. That sounds like a worthy thing to do. How would I figure out exposure times on these objects?
Well, most of the folks who are using Hyperstar generally use really short exposure times, sometimes a minute or less. So you can go up from there depending on how faint the object is and how much background detail you're interested in. So it kind of depends on the object, I think. If you're looking at some bright object like the Andromeda Galaxy, you can probably record a fairly decent image in 30 seconds to 45 seconds with a the default gain of 100 or even a little less. So I don't use Hyperstar, but I know from folks who've discussed this in the past that many times you can get by with fairly short exposure times for bright objects, and then you can increase the exposure times as needed depending on how faint the target is that you're going after. Any
As
other
I understand it,
want to jump in here?
that Hyperstar turns your SCT into an F2 instrument. It's very, very fast. But I don't know if I would ever want to do that. I'm kind of skittish about removing my secondary. Put that thing in.
I've been using a 8-inch Hyperstar for about 2.5 years now. And I started with exposures usually from 15 to 30 seconds. And I wasn't even guiding. And then I started guiding, and I do most of my exposures at 1 minute. And I've never done exposure over 1 minute. And I get lots of really, really faint dark nebula. I think anything over, if you do it too long, your stars are going to blow out pretty fast. You'll have to desaturate them. But I don't think I've ever taken an exposure over 1 minute.
So
Yeah,
do
this
you
is
do
Dave.
lots of images to stack, or do you just do
With like the Dark Shark Nebula, I probably did 4 hours on that.
Gotcha. Okay,
1 minute
thanks.
exposures, dithering every five frames probably. But like the Orion Nebula, and this is something I haven't done that I'd like to learn to do, and that's with the Orion Nebula, you want to take quite a few like 5-second exposures, then some 15-second exposures, and then some 30-second exposures. And then I don't know how to do that, but there's ways to put those together. And that way you can use your 5-second exposures for the core and the longer exposures for the outer dust.
Yeah, Jim, I was just looking at one of my images that I took this past year of M13, and my exposures were 13 or 30 seconds.
Okay,
So
thank you.
you don't
Thank
need a
you.
lot when you're bringing in that many photons at F2, you're crushing it with photons. You don't need a
So
lot. Now, if I'm shooting narrowband, because I have two narrowband filters for SHO, One is a HA03 and the other one is an S2O3 filter, and then I combine them together. Um, those I'll shoot maybe 2 nights for each filter just to make sure I
Gotcha.
have enough resolution. And a total of 4 nights on a project typically is what I'm shooting. And those with the Hyperstar, I found I can get away with 120-second exposures, even with a
Gotcha.
narrowband.
So if you were to find an object in Stellarium and you were digging in and looking at information about it, what parameters would you look at to say, okay, I don't want to waste 4 nights worth of imaging and having it be too overexposed? What would you look at? The magnitude of the object and then say, hey, this is very bright and I need to do 15-second exposures? Or the size of it? What parameter would you evaluate to say I need to use this exposure?
I would think you need both.
Gotcha.
And if you go on something like Telescopius, Scopius, however you say it, you can kind of get an idea, and also Stellarium, you can kind of get an idea of how bright the object is by what you're seeing on those websites. And like I said, I've done some really dark, like the dark shark and the anglerfish, the wolf cave. And like I said, I've never done any ever exposure, but I don't use, the only filter I use is UVIR because I do most of my stuff in dark skies. And I don't think I've ever taken an image over 60 seconds.
Well, yeah, I have an Alpera that Star Arizona talked me into that for my backyard is a Bortle 6, so that's where most of my imaging will take place, and that Alpera should help out a little bit, tamping down the Tucson light. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I when I shoot from home, I need to get some kind of filter like that.
Yeah. Well, Opera is really a narrowband filter. It's not considered to be a light pollution filter. For light pollution, I used to use an Optolong L Pro. That's what I started out with. And then I found out my stars would get really weird looking. And I traded it in for an Antly, a tri-band RGB filter, which is a light pollution filter, but it does a very good job of bringing in HA and some O3, but it's not narrowband. It's tuned to bring that type of information in. So when I'm shooting a galaxy that might have HA in it, I found I can get away without having to shoot HA separately and then trying to blend it into the image. But that Alpera filter, I specifically use that for narrowband. So it's an HA and O3 filter. I would still
Gotcha.
recommend you look at getting a light pollution filter of some sort.
Well, I have an L Quad Pro
Well,
that
there you go.
yeah, I have one of those, and I talked to them at Star Arizona about sticking that on the Hyperstar, and they said it's probably wide enough of a bandwidth that at f2 should be okay. So we'll
Yeah.
we'll see how we do between that and the Alpera, um, and see if I can get when I'm at the CAC, I'll use the Alpera. What the heck? Why not? Why not go crazy?
Well, I use it specifically if I'm going to do like an SHO false color image or HOO. But I really like that filter a lot. Now, the reason I got the Alpera was because I also shoot long with my C8. I'll shoot from the back of the image train, and I can't use my IDAS NBZ UHS filter at an f7 setting. I have to use something that will work with it. The Alpera works with it well.
It's called Altera or Antera.
Alpera, the filter you have right now, the Alpera filter.
Oh, Alpera.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that works well at longer f stops or short, smaller f stops.
gotcha. And your Antilla tri-band RGB is what you use in town.
Yeah, I shoot everything from my backyard, so I'm in a Bortle 4 to 5 right now, so
Gotcha.
I'm pretty spoiled. I can do that.
That's not a that's not a budget buster. That's only $196. That's doable.
What the Antlia tri-band?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a great filter. I love it.
And
Okay.
like I said, I haven't used filters, but can you talk a little more about with a Hyperstar, you have to be careful not to get too narrow a band because of the f2. Is that correct?
Yeah, you have to use a filter like the IDAS NBZ UHS filter, which is a very good filter. UHS stands for ultra high speed. So
Oh, okay.
that they designed it for F4 or below. F4 is about the top they'll recommend to go. once you get beyond F4, they're not going to guarantee it's going to work too well. That's when you use something like an Elpera or an ASCAR. They now have the E series, they have the D series and the C series, but those will work with all those focal lengths.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. That's very helpful. I'm looking forward to getting started when we have no clouds. Like the person that said they caused the clouds when they purchased equipment. I'm guilty of
That
that as
was
well, I
me.
think. Yeah, I'm guilty of that too. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, let me make a few announcements and then we'll call it an evening. Our next meeting for October will be Monday, October the 20th at the usual time. And I'll post the link to it well in advance. Also, if you have suggestions about topics that you would like to hear discussed at these monthly meetings, please feel free to send an email to either me or to Jeff Rothstein um, uh, suggesting your idea. Even better, if we'd be willing to do a presentation on that particular topic or to lead a discussion, we would certainly appreciate hearing from you. So we're always open to suggestions coming from the folks who attend these monthly meetings as to what, topics you would like to hear discussed. We've got a few topics set up for the next couple of months, but we're always interested in hearing some more. Okay, well, thank you, Doug, for kicking things off here, and thanks everyone for the interesting discussion on hyperstar and filters as well as the regular topic. See you next month.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.